a local nonprofit ramping up its efforts, saying more homeless people are coming to them for help getting off our streets. The group is called Vegas Stronger. They say that it has to do with temperatures.
For the first time in modern history, courts are stepping in to remove people from their RVs, not because of crime, but because they're poor. Thousands are being pushed out of cities with nowhere to go, no services, and no legal parking left. This is bigger than homelessness. It's a new form of displacement. California faces one of America's largest RV homelessness crises, with an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 people living in cars, vans, and RVs statewide. The root cause is simple. Housing costs have become impossible for working people to afford. In major cities, median rent for a one-bedroom apartment often exceeds $2,600 monthly, forcing tens of thousands into vehicle living as their only option. Cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles have responded with aggressive enforcement rather than solutions. San Francisco enforces a 2-hour parking maximum for oversized vehicles on many streets, meaning RV residents must constantly relocate or face tickets ranging from $100 to $200 each. Repeated violations lead to towing, and towing fees in California easily exceed $1,000 once storage and administrative costs pile up. For people already experiencing homelessness, these fees are impossible to pay. Los Angeles conducts regular enforcement sweeps that remove thousands of illegally parked vehicles annually. A single sweep in hotspots like South Downtown can result in 50 to 100 RVs being towed in 1 week. Meanwhile, the city estimates only a few hundred safe parking spaces exist for vehicle dwellers, leaving thousands with no legal place to stay. California's overall homelessness crisis is staggering. On a single night count, over 161,000 people were homeless statewide, with a large proportion unsheltered and many using vehicles as shelter because formal shelters lack capacity. This creates a brutal cycle where enforcement pressure clashes with limited housing resources, leaving RV residents in constant battle to stay mobile, safe, and legal. Oregon's landscape for RV residents changed dramatically after a Supreme Court decision gave cities greater power to ban camping, including sleeping in RVs, even when shelters are full. This legal shift has created a crisis for roughly 16,000 people experiencing homelessness statewide, with a significant share unsheltered or living in vehicles. Cities like Grants Pass and Medford have passed strict ordinances that consider outdoor sleeping, whether in tents, cars, or RVs, a violation of law. People living in RVs on public land can receive fines of $200 to $500 per incident. Repeat violations can lead to arrests or mandates requiring people to leave city limits entirely. Because Oregon's shelter network is severely limited, with many communities having shelter bed capacities dozens short of actual need, enforcing these bans simply pushes people into rural areas without any services. The lack of legal parking options is stark. Safe parking programs in Oregon typically have fewer than 100. Total space is statewide, meaning the vast majority of RV dwellers have no designated place to stay legally. When enforcement sweeps occur, police or code enforcement officers may impound RVs at costs ranging from $500 to $1,500 or more before owners can recover their vehicles. Combined with high rental costs, particularly in cities like Portland where rents have risen over 30% in the past 5 years, many residents are priced out of housing entirely and have no legal refuge for vehicle living. Oregon's policy shift has effectively turned everyday survival into a criminalized activity for thousands of RV residents who have nowhere else to go. Colorado cities, led by Denver, have pursued large-scale encampment sweeps targeting long-term outdoor living, including RVs parked on public land. Denver has declared homelessness a top priority and authorized frequent sweeps that clear over 100 encampments annually, with some individual sweeps displacing 200 to 300 people at once. Many displaced residents rely on vehicles for survival. Colorado's vehicle-dwelling population has grown alongside broader homeless counts. Statewide, tens of thousands experience homelessness on any given night, with several thousand using vehicles as shelter. Safe parking programs in Colorado remain severely limited. Denver's sanctioned lots hold only a few dozen vehicles at a time, representing a tiny fraction of actual need. Enforcement involves daily relocation orders. Residents might receive a ticket if they don't move every 12 to 24 hours. Tickets in Denver can reach $150 to $300, and filing appeals becomes difficult as many residents lack stable contact addresses. If an RV is towed, retrieval costs often range from $600 to $1,200 or more, effectively deterring recovery and leaving people without their only home. Colorado's approach combines aggressive push factors through enforcement with extremely limited pull factors through housing placements. Even when shelter beds or rapid rehousing slots are offered, they fall far below actual need, often hundreds short per city. Many shelters don't accommodate pets, partners, or necessary medical equipment, forcing difficult choices. The numbers driving this conflict are stark: skyrocketing rents in Denver and Boulder, vacancy rates below 5%, and thousands of RV residents with few legal choices for where to park without risking fines or displacement. Texas has experienced a sharp rise in homelessness and RV living, driven by rapid population growth and fast climbing rents. In major metros like Austin, Houston, and Dallas, median rents have jumped 30 to 40% in recent years, pricing many residents out of conventional housing. City and county authorities have responded with aggressive enforcement actions against encampments, including sites with RV dwellers. Austin's cleanup operations have removed dozens of homeless camps in single months, and at times 30 to 50 vehicles associated with long-term outdoor living are relocated or cited in a week. These enforcement efforts often give residents only 24 to 48 hours to vacate before fines escalate. Penalties can reach $300 or more per violation, compounding financial losses for people with extremely limited resources. Unlike some West Coast states, Texas hasn't significantly expanded safe parking programs. Most cities have only a handful of designated lots for people living in vehicles, and those lots usually fill quickly. As a result, many residents end up moving repeatedly between counties and towns, tracking enforcement timelines and trying to avoid legal trouble. Texas also differs in its approach to emergency shelter. While some municipalities offer motel voucher programs, these frequently have wait times of weeks due to limited funding and high demand. For working RV residents, staying in a motel can be cost prohibitive at $80 to $120 per night, so many choose to risk fines to remain mobile. The net effect is clear. Texas is experiencing migration of RV dwellers from more expensive states, combined with local enforcement practices that push people out of visible urban spaces without replacement housing, leaving many homeless residents in legal limbo. In Ohio, the push against vehicle dwelling doesn't come from a single statewide law, but from hundreds of local ordinances passed by cities across the state. More than 100 municipalities now ban camping or living in vehicles on public land, meaning RV dwellers parked on city streets or public lots face significant legal risk. In cities like Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, and Dayton, local codes prohibit storing property or sleeping on public property. Violations are typically civil citations, but repeat offenses can escalate to misdemeanor charges. First-time fines often start around $150 to $300, but repeat violations within a year can total $1,000 or more, plus additional court costs. Many Ohio RV residents live mobile by necessity, maintaining job commitments with no affordable housing alternatives available. Ohio's median rent shows significant increases, over 20% in many urban areas in recent years, making RV living an important survival option for people squeezed by stagnant wages. Yet criminalizing outdoor living pushes many residents into a destructive cycle of fines and mounting legal trouble. Shelter capacity is severely limited, especially for families with pets or medical needs, meaning many people decline placement when offered. Because ordinances vary city by city, someone may be legal in one neighborhood but immediately cited a few blocks away. For RV residents who travel between cities for work, this patchwork creates constant legal jeopardy and uncertainty. With enforcement increasing annually, upticks of 20 to 30% more citations year over year in some cities, Ohio's approach shows how municipal laws, even without statewide prohibitions, are fundamentally reshaping how and where vehicle dwelling can legally occur. Florida is experiencing one of the fastest spikes in RV homelessness in America due to a perfect storm of rising rents, extreme population growth, and climate-driven migration. Over the past 5 years, Florida's homeless population has risen by over 20%, and state estimates suggest 8,000 to 10,000 people may now be living in vehicles, including RVs, vans, and converted buses. Rents have climbed dramatically in Florida's largest metro areas: Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Miami, with many zip codes seeing increases of 40 to 60% since the pandemic. In Miami-Dade, average rent hovers above $2,500, forcing working families to seek alternative living situations. RV parks that once cost $500 to $700 monthly now commonly charge $1,200 to $1,800, pricing out many long-term residents and forcing them into parking lots, rest areas, and city streets. Florida cities have responded with strict enforcement ordinances. Many counties ban overnight parking at beaches, parks, and shopping centers. First offense fines range $100 to $250, with repeat violations reaching $500 or more. Towing an occupied RV can exceed $1,000 to $2,000, meaning most impounded rigs are never reclaimed and end up auctioned or crushed. Hurricane season compounds the crisis significantly. During storm alerts, counties clear coastal parking areas and evacuate low-lying zones, affecting thousands living in vehicles who have no backup shelter. Relief shelters often exclude pets or RV units, leaving residents to drive inland, burning fuel many can't afford. Florida shows how enforcement plus geography creates exceptionally risky housing situations for RV dwellers. High rents push people into vehicles, storms push them out of every safe place to park. Georgia has quietly become one of the toughest southeastern states for RV residents because of city-by-city crackdowns and almost non-existent safe parking programs. Homelessness has grown. Sharply, around 12,000 to 15,000 people statewide are unhoused, with roughly 2,000 to 3,000 estimated to be living in vehicles at least part-time. Atlanta leads enforcement pressure. The city expanded anti-camping measures, resulting in hundreds of RVs, vans, and cars being pushed from business corridors and freeway frontage roads. An overnight parking ticket typically costs $100 to $200, escalating to $500 and towing threats on repeat violations. Towing costs often exceed $800 to $1,200, which means losing an RV equals losing a person's only home. Georgia's shelter system is drastically undersized. Atlanta's largest shelters regularly operate at or near 100% capacity, especially in winter months. Many counties, especially suburban and rural areas, have zero shelters at all, leaving people with no legal alternative to vehicle living. That gap forces RV dwellers to relocate constantly, often every few days, to avoid fines or police contact. Housing costs are rising across the state. Atlanta's average rent sits around $1,900 to $2,100, up 30 to 40% in recent years, and even mid-sized cities like Augusta and Savannah report double-digit increases. For blue-collar workers, parking an RV becomes the only financial option until enforcement steps in. The most important takeaway: Georgia is criminalizing vehicle dwelling without offering new housing solutions, leaving RV owners stuck in a destructive cycle of parking bans, constant relocation, and steep penalties that push them deeper into poverty. Washington state has one of the highest percentages of unsheltered homelessness in the country, and vehicles, including RVs, are core to how people survive. Greater Seattle alone reports 3,000 to 4,000 people living in cars or RVs, representing nearly half of its unsheltered population. Statewide, vehicle living is believed to involve over 10,000 residents. Rents in Seattle and Tacoma remain among the highest outside California. A typical one-bedroom now averages $2,000 to $2,300, making even dual-income families vulnerable to displacement. Meanwhile, RV park costs have climbed to $1,000 to $1,600 per month, leading many residents to park in industrial zones or on wide arterial streets. Cities are responding with stepped-up enforcement. Seattle police have cleared dozens of large RV clusters, particularly near stadiums and port districts. When these RV rows are dismantled, 50 to 150 vehicles may be ordered out at once, with extremely limited relocation options. Tickets for extended parking violations often run $200 to $300, and towing bills can exceed $500, one of the highest cost burdens in the nation. Safe parking options remain wildly insufficient. Seattle offers fewer than 300 legal overnight spaces, creating a shortfall of thousands. Shelters often refuse RV residents unless they abandon their belongings, which few will do since those belongings represent everything they own. Washington is a clear example of housing costs and enforcement moving faster than solutions. Vehicle homelessness is rising faster than shelter supply can accommodate, leaving RV dwellers caught between intense legal pressure and economic necessity with nowhere to turn. Arizona has become a magnet for RV living, particularly in Phoenix, Tucson, and rural desert boondocking hubs. The state's homeless population keeps climbing. Over 14,000 are unhoused statewide, with roughly 2,500 to 4,000 believed to be living in vehicles, at least part-time. Phoenix rents now average $1,800 to $2,100, up over 40% in just a few years, dramatically outpacing wage growth for service, trades, and healthcare workers. Meanwhile, RV parks have gone from $400 to $600 monthly to $900 to $1,300 or more, leaving many priced out. When summer temperatures climb past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, living in vehicles becomes not just difficult, but genuinely dangerous. The response has been enforcement without infrastructure. Phoenix conducts routine sweeps of large parking lots and freeway frontage areas, sometimes clearing over 100 RVs and cars in a month. Many cities ban overnight parking without exception, issuing tickets $150 to $350 per incident. Towing in Arizona may cost $800 to $1,100, plus daily storage fees. In rural counties, residents often park on public desert land, but officials are increasingly enforcing 15-day stay limits, meaning people must constantly relocate dozens of miles. Fuel costs, ongoing repairs, and heat stress drain already thin budgets quickly. Arizona underscores a brutal reality. A growing number of people need RV living to survive, but the systems they depend on, parking access, utilities, shelter, were never designed for them. The result is a population constantly chased by the law and the weather, with no safe place to land. Nevada, especially Las Vegas and Reno, is seeing one of the fastest transitions from traditional housing to vehicle shelter in America. Statewide homelessness has risen to over 15,000 people, and 2,000 to 3,500 are believed to be living in RVs, vans, and cars. Las Vegas rent inflation has been extreme. Average monthly rent leaped from around $1,000 in the mid-2010s to $1,600 to $1,900 today, with many neighborhoods topping $2,000. Pair that with stagnant wages and soaring move-in deposits, and thousands simply can't stay housed. Cities have aggressively enforced parking restrictions. Las Vegas prohibits sleeping in vehicles in many zones from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., making compliance nearly impossible for people who need to sleep. Parking fines commonly start at $200, and towing an RV can total $700 to $1,200, depending on size and storage duration. With limited urban parking options, many residents retreat to desert perimeters, industrial outskirts, casino overflow lots, or BLM land. But even desert areas now face enforcement. Some counties demand monthly relocation, and summer heat, often 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, poses deadly risks when generators break or fuel runs out. Nevada shelters remain insufficient. Clark County beds regularly run 80 to 100% full, and most don't accept animals, possessions, or couples, forcing vehicle residents to choose between losing their home or remaining outside illegally. Nevada shows how quickly a state can become dependent on RV shelter as a housing safety net, and how fast enforcement can erase that lifeline, forcing people into the margins at the hottest edge of the country. Michigan's homeless population has climbed steadily, with statewide counts showing over 14,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night. A growing portion, 1,500 to 2,500 people, live in vehicles including RVs, especially in cold urban centers like Detroit, Grand Rapids, and Flint. Rent increases outpaced wage growth sharply. In Detroit, rents have gone from roughly $900 per month to over $1,600 per month in many neighborhoods, and security deposits often require first, last, and a deposit totaling $3,000 to $4,000, completely out of reach for low-income residents. RV parks once charging $300 to $600 monthly now ask $700 to $1,100, reducing legal options for long-term parking. Michigan cities generally lack large, safe parking networks. Detroit's only sanctioned sites house fewer than 100 vehicles, a tiny fraction of actual need. Enforcement focuses on anti-camping laws applied broadly. For instance, Detroit and Grand Rapids issue fines for sleeping in vehicles on posted streets. Fines typically range $150 to $300 per violation. If an RV is towed, retrieval fees, including administrative costs, often exceed $900 to $1,500. Winter compounds risks significantly. Michigan's frigid temperatures regularly dip below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and shelters fill quickly. Yet shelters often do not accept RV residents with pets or extensive belongings. As a result, many RV residents choose to stay mobile rather than lose their camp. Local jurisdictions justify enforcement by citing public safety and sanitation concerns, but critics argue the disconnect between law enforcement and housing capacity creates a destructive cycle. People are ticketed into debt, lose vehicles they can't afford back, and end up more deeply homeless than before. Pennsylvania's homeless population, estimated at nearly 18,000 people, has a notable segment, 2,000 to 4,000 people, living in vehicles like RVs due to high rents, slow housing development, and labor market shifts. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are the pressure centers, with rents rising more than 30% in recent years and vacancy rates under 5%. Local ordinances vary widely across the state. Philadelphia's code bans sleeping in vehicles on public streets, issuing tickets of $150 to $300 for violations. Repeat citations can escalate into misdemeanor charges. Towing fees are steep, often $1,000 or more once storage and admin costs are included. Many residents simply abandon their rigs rather than pay these impossible fees. Some Western Pennsylvania cities like Erie and Allentown have enacted similar anti-camping and vehicle dwelling restrictions, with fines up to $500 on repeat offenses. These ordinances apply to cars and RVs alike. In many cases, signs prohibiting camping cover broad swaths of land near rails, waterways, and industrial corridors, leaving few legal options for parking. Pennsylvania's shelter system has severely limited capacity. In Philadelphia, winter shelter programs fill to 100% nightly, and many do not accept pets. RV residents who bring animals often choose to remain in vehicles rather than enter shelter systems that reject them. The rise of RV camps, clusters of vehicles near highways and service areas, has pressured local officials to act. However, moments after sweeps, new camps often sprout, illustrating a revolving door pattern. Enforcement without net increases in housing simply moves the problem around. Pennsylvania's central challenge is a patchwork of laws where someone may be legal in one township but criminalized in the next. Tennessee's homeless population has grown sharply, and vehicle dwelling is one of the fastest-growing segments. Current estimates put statewide homelessness at 12,000 to 15,000, with 500 to 3,000 people living in RVs, vans, or cars. Nashville, Memphis, and Knoxville are the hotspots where RV camps are most visible. Rents have jumped 25 to 40% in many Tennessee cities, and wages haven't kept pace at all. A typical RV lot, once costing $300 to $500 monthly, now commonly charges $800 to $1,200. So many residents seek cheaper but illegal parking on city and county streets. Local governments have responded with strict enforcement ordinances. In Nashville, for example, RV dwelling on public streets is banned completely. Violators can be fined $200 to $300 per incident. Towing fees often hit $700 to $1,000. And without alternative legal parking, residents must constantly relocate to avoid escalating fines. Shelter capacity is extremely low. Nashville's largest shelters frequently operate at 90 to 100% capacity, especially in winter months. Programs that exist for vehicle dwellers are limited, often less than 50 spaces statewide, and are typically first come, first served. Tennessee's legal patchwork complicates mobility significantly. One county may allow daytime parking but ban overnight stays. Another may enforce a 24-hour roll-on rule. For someone working multiple jobs, this means calculating hours, distances, and fine risks every single day, effectively penalizing employment. The real cost burden becomes clear when you add it up. A ticket here, a tow there, lost work hours to relocate, and preventive moves burn both fuel and hope, trapping Tennessee's RV population between survival and citation. North Carolina's homelessness has climbed steadily, and vehicle dwelling is growing as rents balloon beyond local median incomes. Statewide, roughly 12,000 to 14,000 people experience homelessness nightly, with 2,000 to 3,500 living in vehicles. Charlotte, Raleigh, and Asheville are central hubs for this crisis. Charlotte's average one-bedroom rent now sits above $1,600, up over 30% in the last few years, while wages remain stagnant, leaving many working families in precarious positions. RV costs have jumped too. Small parks that used to go for $350 to $600 per month now list at $900 to $1,300. North Carolina cities respond with anti-camping ordinances that sweep public spaces and streets regularly. Charlotte, for instance, prohibits overnight camping, including in vehicles, on city property. Fines are $160 to $300 and increase on repeat offenses. Many jurisdictions allow towing after 24 hours, with costs often $800 to $1,200. Safe parking programs are scarce across the state. Charlotte's sanctioned lots hold fewer than 100 vehicles, and demand consistently outstrips supply. Shelters operate near maximum capacity. Winter seasons see 90 to 100% occupancy most. Nights. North Carolina's rural counties often have little to no shelter infrastructure, meaning RV residents may travel long distances to find services, driving up fuel costs and risk of fines in unfamiliar enforcement zones. Because parking laws vary by municipality, RV residents may face tickets one block over from where they were legally parked. The combination of rising housing costs, sparse legal parking, and rising fines, plus towing bills that often surpass $1,000, creates a cost spiral that pushes people deeper into instability, even as they try to escape the housing crisis. Wisconsin's cold climate and limited shelter capacity make RV living both an option and a serious risk. Winter temperatures regularly drop below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and statewide homelessness numbers, 10,000 to 12,000 people, include a significant contingent living in vehicles when shelters are full. Estimates suggest 1,000 to 2,000 RV dwellers across cities like Milwaukee, Madison, and Green Bay. Milwaukee, facing rising housing costs and limited affordable units, reports average rents now $300 to $1,700 for basic apartments, pricing out many low-wage workers. RV parks that once charged $400 to $700 monthly now routinely exceed $800 to $1,000, narrowing legal parking options dramatically. Cities enforce stringent anti-camping and vehicle dwelling laws. Milwaukee prohibits overnight sleeping in vehicles parked on public streets. Tickets are typically $150 to $300, with repeat offenders facing escalating fines and possible misdemeanor charges. If a vehicle is towed, fees, including storage, often reach $900 to $400. In winter months, enforcement becomes more frequent under concerns about public safety and freezing conditions. Shelters fill quickly during winter, running as high as 95 to 100% capacity most nights. Many shelters have rules excluding large pets or personal belongings, pushing RV residents to stay outside even in dangerous conditions. A significant problem in Wisconsin is the mismatch between enforcement and services. Cities frequently issue relocation orders requiring people to move within 12 to 24 hours. Tickets accumulate quickly for people simply trying to survive. With only a handful of sanctioned parking spaces statewide and many shelters lacking capacity for complex needs, RV residents are left balancing extreme weather, legal pressure, and basic survival. What's happening right now isn't a crisis. It's a warning shot for every American living on the edge. Should states support RV residents or push them out? Drop your comment below. I read everyone. And before you go, hit subscribe and don't miss our next video. Things are only getting more intense from here.